Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at another episode, or should I say a continuing episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies.
It's a continuing saga. It's
It
a
is.
saga.
I don't know about that. So we're on episode number 292. Life is a saga, Peter. Come on. For some people, it's worse than others.
It took us 5 minutes to get started this morning. Bah, 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 bah.
Episode number 292 is called Part 2, Rookie Rewards of Subject to Deals. Here's the description. In podcast number 291, which was called Legitimate Rewards of Subject to Deals that Create a Gargantuan Retirement Quickly, we covered in detail, Peter, how any rookie can go from being dead broke to a millionaire quickly. It is actually incredible when you break down the math, how simple it is. But then towards the end of that podcast, we started to dig into how making the money is only half the battle. The harder thing to do is to keep all the profits, especially from the tax man. This is more important for anyone doing real estate deals, only because too many of us focus on finding deals, negotiating, buying them, the paperwork and all that stuff, renovating, then selling, that we get blinded by the fall through the money cracks. Or fall through the cracks money is a better way to say it.
Yeah.
That in most cases is way, way more than the actual profits in any deal.
Can be.
Money now, money monthly, and money later is just the starting gate for our financial freedom race. So you are going to want to know what we have to say today so you can hear all of these very unknown struggles. No, I did that intentionally.
What?
I'm joking with myself. I'll read that again.
Well, somebody has to.
That's my bad humor. Excuse me. We have to say, so you're going to want to know what we have to say today so you can hear all these very unknown strategies to make your goals 10x quicker than you think. Good morning, Johnny Cashflow. How are you this morning? So there is a link in the chat that will help you with today's podcast. I'll just leave it at that. Also, realize that, and you can find that, I got to get my head together here. There's a link in the description of where you're watching us or listening to us, not in the chat, because the chat is in front of me. What I meant to say is if you wanted to join us on this podcast live, you can do that by going to Facebook or YouTube. When we're recording, we record around 9:30 a.m. on Thursday mornings, Eastern Standard Time. Sorry that it doesn't meet most people's schedule, but it meets Pete and I's schedule, and that seems to be what counts at this point, right? I'm being a little cocky there, but we both have very busy schedules. So you can go to Flipping Houses for Rookies either on Facebook or on YouTube, and you can type in the chat or the comments, and it's right in front of us. I can see the chat in front of me, and I'll answer any questions, okay? Also, you can leave us a review. That would be good, okay? So, or subscribe to the channel that you're listening to or watching us, because we keep track of all that stuff. Those are our report cards. We still get report cards, Peter.
Yeah, my age.
Did you know at 70-something years old, you're 70 or 70-something? I want to get it clear, because I want to say 70-something.
Hey, it's easy this way. I was born in 1950. Might as well be 1898 for most people, but that's what it is. 1950. Take it or leave it.
Did they have warm water back then?
You had to heat it up though. Yeah. You had to heat it up.
All right. So here we go. Okay, Pete. I made some bold promises today in the description, which means we have a lot to cover today. So let's start off with a quick recap of the podcast episode that I spoke about in the description, which is episode number 291, which is the one before this one, which is called Legitimate Rookie Rewards of Subject to Deals that Create a Gargantuan Retirement Quickly.
Mm-hmm.
In that podcast, we used a very conservative deal that produced about $5,000 a month in money now.
Oh, wait a minute. No, you said a month. Oh, yeah, you meant a month.
Yeah, let me do it again. So
yeah.
I don't know what the hell's the matter with me this morning, but I got to get my head right here, right now. I got too much stuff floating around. So, all right, so we used a very conservative deal that produced $5,000 money now.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and that's very conservative. On a non-refundable deposit when selling on a rent-to-own, which is how we sell almost all our properties.
Right.
That deal also had $200 a month for cash flow.
Yeah, that is low.
And it had about $15,000 for money later, which is the equity or the profit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So those are extremely, extremely, extremely low numbers. And I'm going to explain that in a minute, right? Mm-hmm. So I say that because I'm on the East Coast. The two coasts, the East Coast and the West Coast, have absorbently high numbers, but the middle of the country doesn't. So I'm going to pick the middle of the country, use those numbers because you just multiply them on the two end states, right? So
multiply by 2 or 3.
Yeah, in California by 10. So the deal structure looked like this. This was the example that we used in the last podcast, right? So the market value was $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
The purchase price was $90,000. We financed it with a subject to deal, which means we took over the seller's existing loan payments, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the money monthly to pay the mortgage with the taxes and insurance was $900.
Okay.
So to recap, the market value was $100. We paid $90. We took it over subject to, which means we took over their monthly payments of $900 a month.
Right.
That was the deal we used, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So then we sold it. Again, this is all a recap from last week. We sold it using a lease option to buy method for $110,000. Mm-hmm. So we paid $90, sold it for $110. The monthly payments were $1,100 a month. So we were paying $900, sold for $1,100 a month, right? And the cash at closing was $5,000 down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I want you to know that if you're on this planet, which we call Bill's planet, I want you to know this is, I had a one-on-one conversation with a guy yesterday, and he's asking me how he can get his, it kind of irked me a little bit because he's talking to me about coaching, and my coaching isn't that much money, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
And he's kind of balking at me a little bit about the price to find out he just spent $8,000 on a coaching program, and he's coming to me because they're not helping him.
Yeah.
Right?
Gee, have you ever heard that before?
Yeah, exactly. So the point that I'm trying to make is he's asking me, like, how soon can I start making money? And it's really up to, really comes up to how many phone calls do you want to make? Or how many people do you want to talk to? I don't care if it's phone calls or texting or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But here's the point that I'm bringing up. This deal is so conservative because nowadays, if you've been paying attention, my average deal, and I get busted on this because I help a guy do coaching that's been doing it for 40 years, and he busts me all the time because my average cash flow is between $800 and $1,000 per month. And he's like, yeah, this coaching client yesterday, or soon-to-be coaching client yesterday was saying, yeah, but that's because of your prices, because he's in Akron, Ohio, believe it or not, Cleveland, which is where we buy properties for our
Yeah, right.
coaching group, right?
Yeah.
What I explained to him, and the reason why I'm diverting right here, is because I'm saying you would get $5,000 down. You're probably better off to take a little less money, like $3,000 down. Even if you did take the $5,000 down, you tell them that they need to have more money, and you get them on a note for another $3,000 or $5,000. So what it does is it takes your $200 a month, because so if let's just say they have $5,000, they have let me get a number here. They have $3,000 down on a $100,000 house.
Okay.
So that's
like
three grand.
3%.
Or 3,500. We'll say 3,500, right?
Okay.
What you could do is say, well, we really need 7,000 or 8,000 down. How about if I take your 3,500 and on top of the rent, which will be 1,100, you pay another $150 a month towards your down payment. Right? So what happens now is instead of making $200 a month, you're making $350.
Right.
And that's how I make my big profits. That's how I do $800 or $1,000 a month deals. It's not that I'm robbing the houses or paying less or I'm better than anybody else or talk to the clients. It's just the math. It's just knowing how to sell.
Yeah, but what's crazy about that is if you only have 3.5% down, it's not impossible, but it's better to get a loan if you have more down. When the bank sees more down, they're happier. So you're giving them a chance to just get ahead a little bit on the loan they're going to get. So the loan's going to be a little less, and then their payments are going to be less when they get it done. So they're not losing a thing, because when they pay the rent every month, that's rent. Right. You're not buying the house, that's rent. Now they have a little something toward the deposit, so they're going to get ahead.
Every $150 they pay, you're right. Every $150 they pay is reducing their principal.
Yeah.
Right, but more importantly, what I tell my sellers is that we're going to probably get you an FHA mortgage, which is a government mortgage. The reason why we use FHA is because they don't look at credit scores. They do, but they don't. There's so many other factors other than credit scores that the possibility of getting a FHA mortgage is good. And what we do is we try to get them to qualify for the mortgage almost right away, so we know what's wrong, and then we get our people to help them with those solutions while they're in the house for 2 years, right?
Right.
But I tell them FHA is going to require around 5%. So that's why we want a 5% down payment, because I want that deposit money now, because I don't want to have to struggle with their messy finances and their colorful past and have to try to get the money out of them. I don't want to have all the cards against me.
No, we're trying to fix all that stuff.
Right.
By the way, does that number vary on the FHA, like the down payment? I've heard it might be 3, 4. Does it vary?
Yeah. So if you put in all the closing costs and everything, it's probably about 6 or 7.
Okay.
So, but it is 5%.
Okay.
You can do it for 3%, but it's kind of like it depends on things. Yeah. But you can do it for 3%. But 5% is the number.
Good.
That's the number I use. That's the number they should use. That's the number that's safe.
Right. Other than that, people are used to 20% down, right, on a conventional mortgage.
Yeah.
So this is cool, 5%.
Yep.
That helps us get the buyers in.
All right, good. So now that we kind of sidetracked there a little bit, let's get back to the deal. So we bought for 90, excuse me, sold for 110, right? We paid 900, rented for 1,100, and we got $5,000 down. Yep. So that means if we got a $5,000, money now is $5,000, money monthly is $200, and money in the back end is $15,000. Now, if you take 90 minus 110, that's 20 grand, right?
Right.
Or 110 minus 90. Well, don't forget we got $5,000 for a down payment.
Right. So we have some of it already.
Yeah. So out of the 20 grand that we made, we got 5,000 for a down payment. They still owe us 15 grand.
Yep.
Okay. So if you follow along the last podcast, what we did is we covered the insight math, right? The behind the scenes math that will make you a millionaire, but nobody talks about this part. So if you did one of these deals a month, which is harder than it sounds, but it is possible. If this is all you did, you could do one deal a month. Or even if you did one deal every other month, instead of doing it in 2 years, you do it in 3 years or 5 years. So basically, if you did 12 deals, here's what it looks like. If you did I'm going to do it as 1 month. You did one deal a month, so it's easier to describe. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you did one of these conservative deals per month, after 12 deals, you would have made $83,868 money now. Just on this, if you did this conservative deal, which I'm telling you is so ridiculous, it's once you start doing deals, you're going to realize it. $83,868 money now, $15,600 money monthly, right? And $180,000 money later, which is your equity, for a grand total of $263,000.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you asked last week about the money monthly. Why is it only $15,600? Because every month you're putting a new deal in, and that's what you're getting is $15,000.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But it adds up to a total of $263,000
Right. So it keeps
for a year.
building.
Yeah, for a year. Right? Now watch this. Year 2, which means you go from deal 13 to deal 24, which is another 12 deals. So year 2 looks like this, right? It goes like this. $281,064 in money now. $28,800 in money monthly. $180,000 money later, for a grand total of $464,064. 464064. 464. That's doing 24 deals. Okay. Then, lastly, we talked about doing, when you're doing all these deals, you're naturally going to get better, right? I mean, you're just going to get better and better.
Well, once you've seen a deal all the way through to the end, the next time you talk to somebody from the beginning, it's a different story.
Yeah, you'll know the stumbling blocks, and you'll be a lot better at the foresight of the deal, right?
Yeah, but the confidence talking to the person is a whole different story. Because
too,
people
you're right.
listen to you, and they don't believe you. They don't believe you. He says, "I just did one.
Yeah.
It worked like this. I did that. I did that for the people. They moved to Denver, and the people came in from Southington, and they couldn't get the house, and I got them in. They're so happy." And they go, "Oh, sounds real to me."
Yep.
Then it's a little easier.
So by virtue of just getting better and better, I mean, how much better do you get? 25%, 50%, 75%, 100%? So let's just take the low number and just let's say it's 25%.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So at 25%, right, the numbers would look like this. So if you suppose you did the first year, the first 12 months, you made your 83,868 for money now, 15,600 money monthly, and 180,000 in equity, which is a total of 263.
Right.
Then you got 25% better. We'll say the second year, right? It would look like this: $450,330 money now. $56,250 money monthly, and $281,250 money later, for a grand total of $731,850.
Not too shabby.
So when I say I make millionaire makers, this is how. I mean, I know I'm going through it. That's what we were talking about before the plan. So I'm going to tell you because it happens to me. It's happening to me right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what stops me or stops you or stops anybody else from making $731,850? Noise, distractions, uncompliance, no compliance. You ask somebody to do something, they don't do it. Now you have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, we were talking about before I got here. My father-in-law's on his deathbed in Texas. We're in Connecticut, right?
Yeah.
We're doing a bunch of fundraising for the church, and it's got a lot of noise because they need to get money for certain things. And so we've been helping them with that, right? Plus, I have all my coaching, research and development I got to work on, right? Plus, I do all my own emails and I write books, and it's like all that stuff could happen before I talk to a seller. So I have to be very strict with, I have to talk to sellers.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's right.
My point is that it's not the system that is the problem. My coaching group is tuned up right now. It's actually not even a coaching group anymore. It's an apprenticeship program. You come into the apprenticeship program, it's like you're my partner. You're doing the deals with us as a team. There's about 15 or 18 of us as a team, and we all work together, and we all help one another to do the deals.
Boy, talking about learning instead of talking about it.
Yeah. I put my money where my mouth is.
It's been fabulous.
It should really be called an internship.
Bill,
Right.
I changed my whole schedule to, I dropped my work on Monday nights just to be in the group,
Yep.
to learn every detail and to watch everything, to help out and be better at what I'm doing.
Right. And thank you for that.
Yeah, and I never did for like what, 5-6 years or whatever it's been. I've always been working, and I hear enough from you later on maybe, but no, this is different. I'm in on that.
So here's the deal. I am 100%, 1,000%, 1,000,000% committed to making real estate millionaires. And my coaching group, I do that. If you follow these numbers I just told you, that's how we're going to do it. It's not like you're going to get one deal for $2 and sell it for $900,000. That's not how we're going to do it. We're going to go through how could you do 12 of these deals. So you could make $83,868 money now for your first year, $15,600 money monthly, and $180,000 in the back year. So in the back end, so you can make a total of $263 next year. How do you do that? What are the steps? How do you follow? And what happens when you get stuck? Who unstucks you?
Yeah.
I said that intentionally. Who unstucks you?
That's how I like to talk. It's more consistent. How do you get unstuck and who unstucks you? It's more consistent.
So then we're still on last week's podcast, and I'm doing this because we covered a lot. So then we got into how do you keep the money? So that's how you make it. So how do you keep it? So the first thing we talked about was subject to deals are way more popular today. And the reason why I know that is not only are the subject to taking over a mortgage subject to on the government documents, which most people don't know, but every real estate transaction in the United States right now goes through the government.
Yeah.
So you get your settlement statement from the government. They send you the settlement statement. How's that for communism, huh? So they send you the statement. So they see all the numbers. Somebody sees all the numbers.
Yeah.
Right on the government's document called the HUD-1, which is actually a settlement statement, it says taking over the mortgage subject to. So that's number one. Number two, I now see attorneys popping up in many places in many states saying that they're subject to specialists. So that begs me to the next thing that we covered, which is now that the attorneys and closing agents are doing it, banks are way more relaxed on this due on sale clause thing because it's done legally. It's not done on a kitchen table, sneaking behind everybody's back. So nowadays, anybody that's saying subject to is bad is just completely ignorant. They don't know how to do them. That's all. Okay. Then we went over how we buy old mortgages for 3 and 4%, because for 14 years, or 13 or 14 years, mortgages have been 3 and 4%. Well, with the economy the way it is and inflation going, and the interest rate is going up. So what's going to happen when interest rates are 5, 6, and 7% or more? We're going to still be buying the old mortgages at 3 and 4% because we're taking over mortgage payments, right? So we're buying the properties at 3 or 4% interest. But when we sell on rent to own, it's going to be at that higher number. Right? So if we're paying, we'll say $1,300 for a mortgage and the current value of that same mortgage is for $1,500, you just made $200 a month.
Yeah, that's the current market on it.
Right.
And that's what people are expecting. We just don't know.
You're not getting more interest. You're not charging more interest. It's just when you rent, you can get the current market, because if they had to go get a mortgage for the new rate under, say, 6% for that dollar amount, they're going to pay $1,500 where you're only paying $1,300. So without even doing any math, without doing anything, you just made $200 just because of the currency, because you bought at an old price and sold at a new price.
Sure.
Right? That's like, don't you wish you could go back right now and buy a 57 Chevy Bel Air brand new off the showroom for, what was it, $800 or $2,000? I was watching Barrett's auction the other night, and they had one of them things go for $106,000.
Sure.
So imagine if you bought it at the original price when it was on the showroom in 1957 and you had it now. It's the same example, right?
Yeah. Well, I've talked to people that bought houses. Oh, my father bought these in the 60s and 70s. Like, what?
Yeah.
So they've been paid off for quite a while. So
So then we also covered how to get more, how we get the mortgage payment interest reduced or deducted. So
Right.
here's something that nobody talks about because it's a play on words and the federal government can come after you if you say it the wrong way. But suppose you're making on an average subject to deal for me, I make about $400 before I get the down payment assistance stuff in there.
yeah.
Right? So let's say it's $400. So if you're making $400 a month positive cash flow, right?
Yeah.
That's $4,800 a year. Well, I'm paying the mortgage, right? Because it's a subject to deal, so I'm paying the mortgage. So guess what? In February, the bank sends me a bank statement or a statement says, "Oh yeah, you paid this year. This is one of my deals. You paid $6,088.81."
Oh, really?
And interest.
Interest. Now, isn't interest tax deductible, Bill?
So you could take that right off your income. So didn't that just wipe out the $4,800? That it's a counterpart to that $4,800. So that $4,800, you're not paying taxes on that. You're not paying income taxes on the $400 because the interest just wiped it out. And oh yeah, by the way, you got $1,200 or $1,300 left that you can put towards the down payment, the non-refundable down payment.
Yeah. Deducted off something else.
So we talked about that. Then we covered the 3.64% of depreciation, right? Which is on every deal. So because the deed's in your name and because you own the property, you get depreciation, which is 3.64%. That adds up,
Yeah.
right? Which leaves us to where we are right now. Okay? That's where we left off the last podcast.
Right.
So we were talking about the end of episode number 291 using Roth IRAs. So a Roth IRA is a funny thing because a lot of gurus will say use Roth IRAs, they're tax-free. That is true if you do it the way they say. So there's this thing called UBITA tax, which I should probably look that up.
Undisclosed business something.
Yeah. So basically, if you don't
UBIT.
Yeah, UBIT. So if you don't structure the deal correcly and put it in your Roth IRA, UBITA tax means this. If you bought it for 100 and sold it for 200 and made 100,000, the UBITA tax would apply to the 100,000. The way the Roth IRA reads is if you owe 100,000 and you sell for 200,000, that's when they use the UBITA tax or UBIT tax, right? If you pay off the 100,000 and then sell the house, there is no tax,
Exactly.
right? So when I first heard that, I was like, oh my goodness, how that changes the whole thing. But then I have a conversation with my CPA, and guess what I find out? And then I go do my research on it, and guess what I find out? The way you use your Roth IRA the best is to buy properties on a lease with an option.
Yep.
Because if you put the option agreement in there, there's no UBIT tax.
Yeah.
Because you didn't pay anything. It was just a promise to pay. So the best thing in the world to put in a Roth IRA is an option agreement or a lease with an option agreement. So if you were to buy a property or commit to paying a property on a lease with an option for $100,000 and then you sold it for $200,000, there's no UBIT tax because there's no loan.
Yeah. By the way, I saw him yesterday, and he gave me a couple other tips, which I won't get into now, but I've been trying to figure out exact what you can and can't do, and the companies can't legally advise you or accounting advise you because it's not their position. They help you do things, and so our friend Dave told us exactly who to talk to get the absolute best correct advice. So
did he give you the name of a tax attorney?
No, he didn't get. No, it wasn't that.
Okay.
What he said was, get a financial advisor.
Oh, I know one of them.
Who specializes in that. Because that's their whole thing. How you get money, control it, and keep it. So it's a financial advisor, because is it a tax guy? Is it a lawyer? Is it the accountant? That's who he sent the check with after we talked.
When Peter says I spoke to him yesterday, he's talking about the CPA, our CPA.
Our guy, yeah.
All right, so let's keep moving. So that's good, Peter. So here's what happens with Roth IRAs. Here's why they are not popular, other than what I just told you, and there is a way around that. So if you get a little bit of an education on that, and again, this is all stuff we cover in the coaching group if you need it. One person could put a maximum of $7,000 into a Roth IRA per year, right? So one person. So if you're married, that means you could put $14,000 in there. Okay? So you put $7,000 in a Roth IRA, which is why so many don't use their Roths to buy real estate.
Because it's not enough to pay for something?
If you don't buy and trade real estate the way we do it, you'll need $200,000 for a $200,000 house, which is a lot of $7,000 years or $14,000 years. So you have to build that up. It's not like you can say, I'll put $200,000 in my Roth this year and then buy the house. And no, you're only allowed $7,000 a year.
Yeah, it used to be $6,000. They raised that?
It's $7,200 this year, yeah.
Cool.
But because we only need $100 to do most of our deals, like, for example, a lease with an option, for example, or even, I'm going to talk about this later, but the way I file my deeds, all I have to do is pay $70 for filing. There's no other money, right? So because we only need $100 to do our deal, we can do 70 deals with our $7,000.
Right.
Now watch this, again with math, right? So if you were extremely sloppy, if you were a fourth grader, I kid you not, if you were doing this caveman style, and I'm being so mean right now, if you were a complete flipping idiot and you knew nothing about real estate, you could on one of these deals easily make 20 grand just by following the steps.
Hey, Bill, the companies give, the one I went with gives a book out to read, a little paperback. And when I first got it, I read most of it. And they have an example of a policeman, who was not a real estate guy, but he bought something on a $100 option, did a little whatever the heck, and sold it, made $1,700, and they said, and he didn't have to pay taxes on it. It was a little tiny deal, his first time. Oh, I'll do this, do that. Oh, I make $1,700, no taxes, right in the book from the company as an example, amongst many others. I just happen to remember that one because he's a cop, He wasn't a big real estate kid, and his first deal, he was happy to get the 17 and not have to pay taxes on it.
Exactly.
Right off the Roth, $100 in, 17 out.
Which, by the way, it doesn't cost you anything to set up a Roth IRA. You just got to find somebody to do it for you. And there's not many. I think it's what is the name of the company?
There's Equity Trust and Quest.
Quest, that's it. That's the one I use.
You got one, I got the other one. But they're similar.
All right. So if you were to do so, now you got $7,000 in the bank, and the Roth IRA, which means you could do 100 deals. If you did one deal and made 20 grand, a subject to deal or a lease option like I'm talking about, which is like crazy, wicked easy, if you follow my system, right? You ready for this? 70 deals times $20,000 is $1.4 million. So I'm talking about doing this over the course of a lifetime. I'm not talking about doing this in a year or something like that. So if you're 30 years old and you could do 70 deals, and that's at 20,000. What happens if you're doing deals? So now what happens if you do $40,000 deals? Now it's 35 deals.
Yeah.
What happens if you do $60,000 deals, which we do a lot of? I just showed you how to do that a few minutes ago. Now it's like 20 deals. 17 deals.
You had the email in the summer? End of the summer, where the house in Bristol, you showed all the I remember that, 54,000 all in, all out. I mean, after a couple. And
I overpaid for it. I overpaid 10 grand for the house. Right.
And you still pulled the 54 out. No, and the renovation was like this. I went in the house. Bill, the rug looks like it could use some straightening out because it's kind of lumpy. Goes, it'll be okay.
Right.
Hey, how about that over there? You paint that it'll be okay. And people took it. They fixed it up themselves, and they were happy with it. And you made the money.
So I don't want to divert because I think I'm going to do another podcast on this, but I was listening to a tape, which I'll leave undisclosed at this moment. And it occurred to me when I was listening to this tape, there's two things that cause loss. Intelligence and force. Pushes a person down. So here's what happens. Either you haven't, and it's not intelligence and force, it's the balance of the two of them. So what it made me realize is when I was younger, I didn't have much intelligence. I didn't know how to read and write when I left high school. Right? So I used a lot of force to get things done. I was a mean son of a bitch, and I used force. I used a lot of energy and force to get things done.
Yeah.
I bought a gas station and made a lot of money with it using force because I was there driving, whipping, cracking the whip all the time, and was a hard ass to work for. At age 35, I decided I didn't want to be like my father, who had no intelligence. He had very low IQ. So I decided to self-educate myself. So now I go the other way, and it's like, now I don't use any force, and it's all intelligence. But what I'm realizing at the ripe old age of 58 is it's a balance between the two of them. So when I run into people that are not coaching clients and want to learn how to use this, they're trying to use force with no intelligence. Or you get the really smart guys like some of my partners that are really smart, but they don't use force. They don't go out and talk to people and actually go visit the houses. They're not interacting with the physical universe. They're just using intelligence.
The energy level, yeah.
Yeah, all intelligence and no physical universe stuff. Right? So it's a balance between them. So what I'm telling you with these deals is what I teach is a perfect balance of how much physical universe stuff and how much intelligence you need. And if you balance the two of them correctly, it becomes really easy. It's like a seesaw. You just kind of float in the middle and you're comfortable, right? Because you use just the right amount of intelligence at the right time. Like, for example, I'm completely diverting. Like somebody says to me, you walk into a house and somebody says, tell me about yourself, right?
Oh, yeah.
Most people would be, well, blah, blah, blah. 20 minutes later, you're still talking about you. Where what I'm talking about is intelligence. Oh, what did you want to know about me? Well, how many houses have you bought? It just changed. Now I don't spend. Oh, I bought hundreds of properties. Do you want some addresses?
Yeah, how much smarter that is than just blah 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 blah. Where nothing you might say answers something that they have in their head. You're just trying to find out what do you want to know, and you tell them that.
Exactly.
So you know what they said? I caught this last week with you. I don't know if you caught this. We were getting some training. Answer questions with questions.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, that's Socrates.
Yeah.
That's Socrates.
It came from Mr. Legrand.
Yeah.
Via Socrates from Socrates. Yeah, but isn't that smart? There's a question
that's in Jim Camp's book. No.
Cool.
And it's a Socrates. That's an old time Socrates thing, right? So
yeah, well, you try to teach people not to talk too damn much, but that's the way to do it. You ask another question, then at least what they want to know, and just answer that, and you're done.
Right. So to finish this up, you're right. So to finish this up, if you don't have just a little bit of intelligence on the subject or the thing at hand, I'm not saying you have a high IQ or low IQ. I'm just talking about what to do with the exact thing. Just a little bit. You don't need a lot.
It could be street smarts, just smarts, some kind of smarts.
So just by having a little bit of intelligence, so if you go into somebody's house and they say, tell me about yourself, and you talk for 20 minutes, that's using all force, no intelligence.
Yeah, zoom, 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 zoom.
Or I could be too slick and use too much intelligence and say, oh, well, I've been in business for 21 years and I got a 5-star rating with the Better Business Bureau. That's too much intelligence.
You're trying to sound smart.
So here's the point that I want to make, and I think I'm going to try to make this into a podcast. But next week's podcast is going to be really good because I'm going to talk about how to make a team, an all-star team.
Ooh, cool.
Right? But after that, I think what I'm going to do is, here's the trick. Here is the trick. You don't need to have some spectacular words, or you don't need to have some what's the word I want?
The perfect script?
Yeah. It's not startling things that you need to talk about, like that nobody knows about. What you need to do is be real. So the trick of force and intelligence is to balance them with reality. What does the person know? What can you tell them? What could you tell them that they could experience easily?
Yeah, like the acceptable truth or the acceptable
right? And that's what I'm talking about when the two of them. So I'm way off topic here. We just blew 5 minutes though. But my point is that's what makes deals. Creative real estate deals. What we just talked about is the meat and potatoes that we gave you in the last 4 minutes is how you make deals. So making 20 grand is not, you don't need to know, I'm going to divert again. I can't help myself. So I go into a business, one of my businesses, and I'm looking for what's bugging it, what's holding it back. Right? And this is funny language, but it's not, I don't need to understand something. It's understands, it's plural.
Understanding, yeah.
No, not understanding, it's understands. There's more than one thing wrong, and I need to understand those things.
Right.
So it's never just one thing. So when a person's trying to learn real estate, it's not just one thing they need to learn. It's multiple things that add up to that one thing. But here's the point that I'm trying to make is what I try to emphasize like a whole lot is you have the tools already. I mean, if you've rented an apartment or rented a house in the past, you're 90% of the way there of actually doing a lease option and giving somebody $100 out of your IRA and putting it in your IRA and making 20 grand. If you've rented a place, it's that easy. What you're doing is you don't have a balance between the force and the intelligence, so you can come up with the right simple things to do so that you can have that. You're fighting with yourself. You're your own enemy. Right? All right, so let's move on. So that's pretty cool. That's IRAs. That's pretty cool. We'll do a whole thing on that later. If somebody sends me requests for it, then we can keep doing with that. But and I'm not an IRA expert. I just know that we're trying to use them and we're learning. So we're learning out loud with you. Okay?
Yep.
All right. Because the next thing is because of the language I use on my deeds, which is one sentence. It took me 16 years to learn this. 16 years to learn this, and I'm going to give it to you for free right now.
Write this down, folks.
So there's a thing called conveyance tax. And when you file a deed with the city hall, there's a form you fill out, and the city gets 0.5% and the state gets 0.5% in most cases. Sometimes it's 3/4 and 3/4, but most cases it's 1%.
Yeah.
So if I go in and I file a deed and I'm taking over a mortgage for $160,000 and I put on there that I paid $160,000, how much is the conveyance tax? $1,600.
Yeah.
Okay. But by accident one day I went in, and I'm not going to tell you what the language is. I made a mistake on one of the deeds, and the lady said to me, "That's $70." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She says, "You just need to pay the filing." I said, "How come?" She says, "Well, because you bought the house for less than $2,000. So if you get a house for less, if you pay less than $2,000, there's no conveyance tax." Now here's my question: if I take over a mortgage for $160,000, did I pay $160,000?
No, you didn't.
Not yet. I will eventually, but not yet.
You didn't. No. And you shouldn't get taxed on something you didn't do.
Exactly. So imagine for 16 years I was doing all those subject to deals. Imagine how much money I wasted not knowing that.
Yeah. Your guru didn't teach you that one, huh, Bill?
No, nobody teaches this stuff. You go to any seminar. I will give you. I'll tell you what. No, I'm not going to do that. I'll give you one of my $500 course for free, but I don't want to deal with the support tickets. I'm too busy. So you don't hear this stuff. We're giving it for free on a podcast, Peter. This stuff should be in a weekend seminar, really. But that's who we are. That's why we're here. So tell your friends about our podcast and get more downloads. All right. So because of this little trick, and it's not a trick. It's just, and I check with my lawyer. It's very illegal. He does it now. He does it with his other clients now, right? We pay $70. I pay $70 for a filing fee.
Yep.
Which means we tell our seller that we're going to pay all the closing costs, right?
Yeah.
Well, so many times I've had trouble with this with coaching clients, right? Well, think of it this way. It's 6% for a realtor or marketing. It's 3% for negotiating. It's 3% for repairs. And it's 3% for closing costs.
Yep.
So if I'm the realtor and doing the work, I get the 6%, right? If I'm negotiating, I get the 3%. If I assign the repairs to my buyer, I don't have 3% in repairs, right? And because of what I just told you about this conveyance tax thing, a majority of that money is gone because I know how to do the paperwork. So that 15% is in a very special place. Hip National Bank, baby, right in my pocket. Because I did all the work and I earned that 15%.
Yeah, there's nothing left at all then. 'Cause
No.
I thought about that sometimes. Well, you won't have any fees. I think, well, the conveyance, the closing, eventually, no? Okay. Because, like, in the end, the buyer will usually pay the closing cost, right? In the end?
Well, for us, there is no closing cost.
No,
but they're going to pay.
no, but I mean, when we tell the seller there's no closing cost or no fees, I mean,
Well,
he
because
might pay the
because
closing cost in the end, the buyer might, though?
I'm confused. I just told you there are no closing costs.
No, in the end, like when the buyer eventually.
Okay, so what closing costs are they going to pay in the end?
Well, there's going to be a bank loan,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And they can use an attorney to close.
So they're going to pay $800 for a closing?
Yeah. The buyer might do that, though.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
but they're not going to pay $15,000.
No. So it's like no closing costs or just hardly any. And
And the other, excuse me, and the only reason why is because of what I was talking about, that little bit of intelligence that we have
yeah.
with force.
Yeah.
We put the two of them together and it goes smooth.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's cool, right? Let's move on. Then there's this one. I've seen a lot of this since COVID. And this, if you listen to anything I have said recently, please, please, please listen to this. Because this, my dear listener, is a blurb in time that you will not get for very much longer, but you could be a millionaire just from this. I still talk to customers on the phone, you know that. I talk to buyers and sellers. Now, realize my position. I talk to 8,000 or 9,000 people a week. Yeah. And that's not all one-on-one. I mean, between the podcast, my emails. But think of it this way. I have a business with one partner, Sean. I have a business with you. And then I have my coaching group, which is another place to deal hunt. So I've got 3 companies that are deal hunting. So I always have a buyer or seller to talk to. Mm-hmm. Always. Every day.
Yep.
Okay, so I still do it. Even though I teach others to do it, I'm still the deal maker. I put the hammer down. The deals have to go through me before they do anything, right?
That's
so
right.
Here, because of that, I always have my finger on the pulse. And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm just saying this because when I talk like this, it's freaking real, baby. Because I'm still talking to sellers and buyers, right?
You are.
So here's what I hear. Used to be when your seller is behind in payments, like 3 or 4 months, which is what we call pre-foreclosure, means the bank hasn't flipped the legal trigger yet to do foreclosure, because once they do that, it's an $8,000 or $10,000 add-on to the account. So they'll go 3 or 4 months, maybe 5 months before they start the foreclosure proceeding.
Yeah.
Okay, but they're behind those 3, 4, 5 payments.
That's right.
So what we used to have to do is we used to have to come up with or raise those payments to bring the mortgage payment current.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that we could bring up the arrears and bring the mortgage current, and then we would take over payments.
Yeah.
So for very many podcasts early on, I would say, I don't do those deals because I don't like the desperate deals. Well, the first thing that happened is COVID came, and it's not desperate anymore. This happened to a lot of people. This happened to people that would never in a million years have problems with their money, but because of COVID and they weren't working and all this stuff, all of a sudden they have these problems. So they're not desperate. Yeah. I mean, they're not desperate. They're motivated, but there's it changed my way of thinking, right? Now watch this. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, the government is helping the banks with COVID funds, right? Which allows the banks to take the owed money and put it on the back end of the deal. So if the seller, like I'm working with somebody right now, if the seller has 10 months worth of payments they didn't make, especially during COVID, let's just say that's $1,000 a month. That's 10 grand, which is not likely. It's probably more like 15 or 18 grand, right?
That's right.
The bank was still paying the taxes. They were still paying the insurance, because that's what banks do. They're going to take that money and they're going to put it to the back end of the loan. Now, we talked about this a year ago on the podcast, because I told you that when everybody was talking about all the foreclosures, I said that's not going to happen, because the banks are going to come up with a way where they can make more money with it, because there's so many of them, they're going to become more rich because they came up with, well, this is the way.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what they're doing. It's called a loan modification. But why are we talking about that now? Because a loan modification used to mean you had to do all these financials and and it took a year. But now with COVID, you don't need much. You don't need a lot. You don't need to, they don't drag you through the mud with all your messy like finances and your all that stuff. It's very simple nowadays, and usually within a month or 3 or 4 weeks, you can get a loan modification, because the government's helping the banks do this. With money. They're giving them money to do this. Okay?
Yeah.
Now watch this. So what happens is, most cases they'll take, this is just numbers now, because every loan is going to be different.
Yeah.
But say they have a 30-year mortgage. They take that 10 grand and put it in the back of the mortgage. So if they owe 150, now they owe 160.
Yep.
And instead of being a 30-year mortgage, they turn it into a 40-year mortgage. Why do they do that? Because they make more interest, right?
Yeah, and we saw that. We saw that.
The government,
East Hartford 4 family, 40 years. We saw that.
Yeah. And the government gives them money to do these transactions, I'm pretty sure. I don't know that for 100%, but they're paying, it's like doing a refi, and the government's paying the refi fees, right? But I'm not sure of that part, so don't hold me to that. But here's more to the point. Because you went from a 30-year mortgage to a 40-year mortgage, it almost always, well, 100% of the time reduces the payment, sometimes by 20%. So remember we were talking about paying $1,300, selling for $1,500 a month? Well, now that $1,300 just went to $1,100. And the mortgages, and because you can get the new current money at $1,500, you just made $400 between buying old money and getting a loan modification on a 40-year term. You just made $400 just in mathematics. Not even doing anything, just taking over a subject to deal.
Yep. Crazy.
Effing incredible.
Crazy.
Right? So what happens is these modifications are being done in weeks, if not months, if the person. So here's what a few of my coaching clients are doing. They're becoming modification specialists. They're like calling people up and helping them get them through their modifications. And then they buy the house subject to. Interesting, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, we've been talking the last couple of days, like, where's the best market right now? Who's the best pool of people to talk to?
So the last thing I want to cover, if I haven't done enough so far, is because your buyer is paying rents or leasing from you, right? Now remember, we bought on subject to, took over a mortgage payment, and we're selling on a lease option to buy.
Right.
So because we're selling on a lease with an option to buy, the only thing that the renter or the tenant gets, not a renter, the only thing that the buyer gets with their lease payment is use of the property. We take that rent money or the lease money per month and we pay our principal reduction mortgage. So they pay $1,500, we pay our $1,300 or $1,100, whichever number you're going to use, our $1,300 a month mortgage. Well, in that $1,300, it's going to pay the taxes, the insurance, and it's going to pay principal and interest.
Yep.
Now, if you really want to be clever, you could actually look for properties that have had mortgages for 10 years. So, and I don't do this, but the older the mortgage, the more the principal, the less the interest, because most loans are designed to get all the interest or a lot of the interest in the first 5 years. So if you got a 10-year-old loan, you might be paying $1,300 and say with the taxes and insurance, you're paying $800 a month for principal and interest. If you're taking over a mortgage and 2 years into the mortgage, you might be paying, $700 for interest and $100 for principal. But if it's 10 years down the road, it could be that you're paying, I don't know, $600 for principal and $200 for interest, because the way the banks do it is they preload, because the banks know that the average mortgage is only 7 years. So they try to get all their interest up front.
But either way, you win. If you're paying a lot of interest, you get the interest reduction on the taxes. Yep. If you're paying a lot of principal,
there you go.
You get the principal reduction, and when you sell, you get more equity when you sell. How do you lose on this deal? You didn't cover that. How do you lose?
Right. There is no way. The only way you lose is to not do them. So
man.
And I'm going to go over that in a minute. So each and every month, the tenant's paying down the mortgage and making the money we owe less and less and less.
Yeah.
Or our money later, equity is rising and rising and rising, which is why I get so emotional and so passionate and so crazy and rant about my students wasting time trying to figure out how to do these deals. They're stuck in their own head. Like I said, they're their own enemy. Because if you just do one of these deals, it's kind of like my 30-year-old daughter. She's married, got 2 kids, got a house. And I pound her all the time, Jesse, just put $2,000 a year into an IRA. You make a few $100,000 a year between the two of you. Just put $2,000 a year in an IRA. Put away so much money. What's $2,000? It's $100 a month. Put $100 a month in your IRA. Because at the end of 30 years, that $2,000 per year is going to be a couple $1 million for you to retire from. More importantly, you could use that money to buy houses with. The way we're talking about it, right? Because time is on her side. So it's the same way here. So each month that passes is one less month you're not banking profits in your retirement account. So while you're fiddling around in your life trying to figure out how to do this and how to do that, and you think that you know how to do everything, or you got to figure it all out before you talk to anybody, and you have all these manufactured ideas of what you need to do before you did it, right? I mean, just think of it this way. What did you think about before you started to learn how to drive? What were all the obstacles you thought you had that weren't there? How about the first time you had sex? What were all the obstacles you had before you found that other significant person? All those obstacles were in your head, and none of them were true, because it went a lot smoother than you thought. How many coaching clients do I talk to where they're all worried about talking to a seller? They go talk to a seller and they come back and they're like, that was really easy, right? But here's my point. While you're doing that, which is why I say you're your own enemy, while you're doing that, every month is another month clicks off, and another month where you're not making a payment and reducing principal and banging the crap out of your retirement fund. Yeah. As you can see, if you're too focused with what you can only see on your nose, right? Like making 20 grand because you want to get rid of your job, or money monthly, you're blinded by what we just talked about. All these profit centers that are in the background that you have no idea are there because you can't even make the first step. You got yourself so wound up in your own head that you're tripping over the pennies to make or how's it say? You're tripping over the dollars to make pennies. Mm-hmm. It's the intelligence force thing that I was talking about, right? Which is where the real money is. Once you start doing these transactions and you start talking about these things, which is the reason why I say in my coaching group I make millionaires, because of all these things. And believe me, there is no way I can cover all of them in an hour. No way. There's so much more to this that it's unbelievable. But the only way you're going to learn it is to do it. I can't tell you how many times I'll repeat something on a coaching call, or here, or in a training. Repeat it. And then next week, somebody comes back and say, how do you do this? Because now they have to do it. So that now all of a sudden, what is it saying?
When the student is ready, the teacher arrives.
That's right.
Appears.
Yeah. Right. By the way, Peter, what I just gave to you in these last 2 podcasts has taken me 30 years to learn. And a whole lot of deals. a whole lot of deals,
Yep.
right? And a lot of mistakes. It's cost me, I don't even know, probably hundreds of, well, I'm telling you, just paying conveyance tax for 16 years. How much did that cost?
Yeah, I know.
That's probably hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'm telling you, before I realized how to do that.
Yeah.
And then somebody will be pissed off because they didn't tell you what the sentence is. Well, it cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars to get that sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that worth something? Right?
Well, I think people expect everything free nowadays.
Well, here's the problem with free. Here's the problem with free. I don't mind giving away free, but if you're on my email list, you'll notice for a
but not
couple
everything.
months. Yeah, but if you notice for a couple months, I've been on a rant.
Yeah.
And the rant is, if it's for free, you won't be emotionally involved.
Mm-hmm.
You won't think it's valuable. And most important, because you're not emotionally involved and you don't think it's valuable, you won't get good results because you'll waste it too easily. If it gets too hard, you'll just kick it aside because it didn't cost you anything.
Yep.
Right?
Sad but true.
Johnny Cashflow, Mr. Ramirez says, thank you, Pete and Bill. You're very welcome. Okay, so to end off here, again, it's taken me 30 years to learn all this, to make it, not only learn it, to make it organized and simple so you can understand it, so I don't have to go through all my stories like earlier podcasts to tell you how to do things. So I'm going to do something very unusual today, Peter.
Yeah.
I want a paycheck. I want to get paid for what we just taught you.
Really?
Yep.
So you want people to send $5 each? What do you want?
So in the description, I put a link to go leave us a testimonial. I think I've done my share. I think that you can put your exchange in, and if you're one of those people that just dropped off the call, then your karma will get you. Go try to do deals like that because you're shortchanging people. If you're shortchanging me right now, you're shortchanging other people. The way you do something is the way you do everything. So if you shortchange me right now, you're going to shortchange sellers, and that karma will bite you in the ass. You won't do what we just talked about. So please, as soon as possible, go in the description, click on a link, type it, put an audio, a video, but you should know, I've been thinking about ending this podcast series. I'm not sure I'm going to do it. So low testimonials or responses will only push me more into shutting the podcast down. Because if you don't, communication is two-way, not one-way. If you don't respond to our communication, it's a one-way flow. It's a stuck flow. It's always us communicating to you. We get no feedback. Why would we want to keep doing that? Imagine talking to your spouse or your significant other. Blah, 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 and they don't answer. Blah, 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 and they don't answer. And you did that for 3 days. After a while, what's going to happen? You're going to leave because you're not getting an answer. That's where we're at. If you're not willing to give us some exchange and tell us how we're doing, or at least give us some sort of something, then we're going to go away. And that's not a threat. It's just maybe we're not valuable. Maybe this podcast's not valuable to people, which is not true because I get a lot of stuff already anyways. But the point is, how valuable is it to you right now? I just gave you, I'm going to tell you right now, we went to a Ron LeGrand seminar a month ago, and we paid for that seminar. I think it was a few $100s to be in the seminar. It was just a one-day seminar, which, by the way, is a seminar to sell you his course. But we paid to be in that seminar, and we didn't get a third of the information I just gave to you for free. So please go in the link, in the chat, or the description, in the description, click the link, leave us a testimonial, good, bad, or indifferent, what you think about us, because we've had some bad ones too, and let us know what you think. Okay? In the meantime, just pick the phone up. Go on Facebook. I have a program I'm selling right now. If you're on my email list, it's $42. It's normally $77. It's $42 to show you how to talk to sellers. It actually shows you how to talk to sellers, like for real. And I give away forms. I give away lease option documents. I give away in-house inspections. Like, I give the whole enchilada away for $42. And the reason why I'm doing that is because, first of all, if I stop doing the podcast and stop doing free stuff, I'm going to have things like this. That's why I'm putting them in place. So that's why we're doing it.
Yep. Okay.
So have a good week. Find a buyer. Go on Facebook. Look for a rent-to-own people. Text them. What would have to happen for me to buy your house today? Or text them or message them. You know, if could I lease this property or could I rent from you for a year or two, then buy it? Mm-hmm. And see what happens. And you could do one of these deals. Next week's going to be really good, Peter, or episode number 293. It's going to be something along the lines of hiring an all-star team.
Cool. That sounds good.
Can't wait for that.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good week, folks. Over and out. The end. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.